be picking up where we left off last week in the book of Numbers. The chapter that we'll start reading in Numbers is going to be, I believe it's chapter 14. So we finished up in chapter 13 last week. Book of Numbers, original Hebrew text was titled In the Wilderness, and that's where we're at, in the wilderness. So put yourself in that wilderness as you're reading through this scripture. And put yourself in the place of children of Israel God has got them out of there pretty quickly. Maybe 40 hours it took to get out of Egypt, but we're going to find it's going to take 40 years to get Egypt out of the children of Israel. And that's going to be some of the baggage that they've carried with them, the habits and the customs and stuff. It's been ingrained in them from being in Egypt for 400 years. It's going to take a while to get that out of them. I think that's part of what we're going to see, what we've been reading so far about the children of Israel, God's people. He got them out of there, but it's hard to get Egypt out of them. They got murmuring. They got idol worship. We've read about the golden calf. All them bad habits are in these people. And the chapters coming up and the scripture we're reading here coming up is they continue to murmur, and the anger of the Lord is kindled against them. They're going to be, some of them, consumed in this wilderness. And it gets so bad that God wants to start over, we're going to read. He wants to just get rid of all of them at some point in time in the upcoming verses we're going to read. But anyway, there's a lot going on here. I don't want to spoil it by just overviewing it. But I do want to start. I'm going to turn over here to 1 Corinthians chapter 10. I'm going to read verses 1 through 6 for you. And I'm sure you're probably familiar with this verse, these few verses. Let me take my glasses off here where I can see this fine print. I'm going to turn over here to Corinthians. And the thing about Corinth, if you'll remember, this book of Corinthians written by Paul, it's a letter to the Corinthians. And if you'll remember, that was a city that was pretty well off. And of course, they had a lot of problems, if you'll remember back in the scripture. A lot of worldly issues going on. All that stuff that had come from Rome, habits and stuff was in that city. And they were struggling with those worldly, as young new Christians, they were struggling with things of the world, wanting to keep them bad habits as well. And this is many years later, for these new Christians. And Paul's writing to them. But he's wanting to tell them the scriptures here that we're reading today in the Old Testament. Paul's going to tell them that these words of God are good for them. And I wanted to pass that on to anybody that might be listening today that's like, why are we reading all this stuff in the Old Testament? Of course, a lot of people will say, well, that's the law. That don't mean nothing. We've got a Jesus now, and that's true. I fully agree. But you're going to read right here, I'm going to read to you in a minute, that Paul tells you these words of God from back then pertain today, and it's for things that's really real. And as I'm studying, I'm affected by the things that I read back here in the Old Testament. Now, not the weights and the measures and the sacrifices and, how many times they do this and do that, but the overall the problems associated with people that you see, and it's just hard for them to get rid of these bad habits. They've come out of Egypt, and these habits are in there, and they've seen miracles performed by God, but even then, it's hard for them to get this out of their system for some reason. The murmuring, the false worship, and stuff like that, and it's hard for them to get out of it. But as I'm reading and studying this at home, it affects me. I see it for what it is as a believer, the struggles that people go through. And I'm going to read, starting chapter 10, verse 1. Paul says, Moreover, brethren, I would not that ye should be ignorant, don't want you to not know. You know, ignorant don't mean stupid. It just means you don't know. You know, you just don't. If you don't know, you don't know. How that all our fathers were under the cloud and all passed through the sea. You know, he's telling about God back then at the Exodus. They went through the Red Sea. God was a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. And they're there. They're seeing this. And were all baptized unto Moses in the cloud in the sea, and did all eat the same spiritual meat, and did all drink the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and the rock was Christ. But with many of them God was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. And that's what we're going to be reading in some of these verses today coming up. These people are going to be overthrown. God's going to tell them they're going to fall in the wilderness. They are not going to make it to the land of milk and honey. And that's going to, that's going to affect them. They're going to hear that from Moses. Moses is going to pass that word on to them. And now verse 6. Now these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted. So these words that we're reading about here, these habits of the people, not necessarily the law, but these habits and these things that they've got going on here, they're lusting after that food back in Egypt, that easy life. You know, they were thinking back of that. They're lusting on that. And, for me, as I'm reading here today, I don't want to, when I'm studying this, and trying to get a grasp on this, as a believer, I look around the things that maybe I used to do and think about as important. It's not that important no more. There's no need for me to go lusting and thinking about those things now. This is what these scriptures are bringing into focus with me each time I'm in here each week reading and seeing, especially with what they're lusting after and their thoughts. And they're going to get to the point we're going to read here in the upcoming chapter pretty soon. They want to usurp power in the tabernacle. Some of them are not satisfied with what God appointed them to do, to the point that they're going to try to usurp. They want to be the high priest. They want to be in charge. And if they don't get their way, they want to elect a new captain, and they're going to want to go have somebody lead them back to Egypt. They're going to want to return to that lustful things that was in Egypt for them. And it's a struggle for these people. It's a struggle. It's a terrible struggle, and it shouldn't be, but it is. And it's just because it's so ingrained. And, sometimes that easy life parts of it, they're wanting to go back, and even had hard times. They were servants, slaves, served with hard rigor. But that's how those things can affect these people, to the point that they want to go back to that. But anyway, I'm going to start reading chapter 14. I'll read verses 1 through 4 right quick. All right, the reaction and judgment of the people. Oh, I needed to go back too. Leah told me I've skipped a very important verse. As we finished up last week, we were talking about the spies and the report. They went out into the land, spied the land of milk and honey, come back, going to give a recon report of what they saw to Moses and the congregation. Of course, they saw giants, and they were afraid of that. And the land was beautiful, but they were afraid. They were full of fear. But somehow I skipped, to me, a very important verse. It was verse 30 in chapter 13. It's right above right here where we're about to read today. But there was two men that wasn't scared when they come back from that report, and I want to make sure I give Caleb his just attention here that I missed last week. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, "Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it." God has told these people what to do. They shouldn't even went into this land and spied it. They should have just done what God said immediately. But those two men, it wasn't Caleb's one of them, that through his faith, he didn't doubt. He stood up and said, "Yes, we can go. We need to go." So that's kind of where we ended up last week. Out of the 12 spies, we've only got 2. His faith was strong enough in the Lord to go into that land like God told them to do to start with. And of course, the other 10, they don't have it. They don't have that faith at this point in time. They just don't have it. All right. So now 14:1. And all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron. And the whole congregation said unto them, Would God that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would God we had died in this wilderness? And wherefore hath the Lord brought us unto this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and our children should be a prey? Were it not better for us to return into Egypt? And they said one to another, Let us make a captain and let us return to Egypt. You know, they've just found out this bad report from these 12 spies. 10 of them was a negative report, full of fear and doubt and lack of faith. And it goes to show you, this is the whole congregation, you know, that we're hearing about here in the scripture. And you can take 10 people and how they affected the whole congregation like that with their negative report. So that's one thing, that bad word can affect that many people at one time. And of course, you know, here they are, this here, like we was talking a minute ago, they're talking about, you know, God's brought us out of Egypt for us just to die here in the wilderness. Boy, I wish we could go back already. Already wanting to go back. So we've got that going on now. And that new captain, you know, that's backbiting against Moses and Aaron as well. Right there is their leadership. They want to elect a new captain. They want to get somebody else in charge to take them back to Egypt. And after all Moses and Aaron's been through and what they've seen God perform the miracles, and they want to elect a new captain. All right, 5 and 6. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. They're down on their hands and knees, y'all, after this word. They know what's going to happen. They know the situation here. I can't believe they're already doing this again, and they're already down pleading with God. And Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, which were of them that searched the land, rent their clothes. This is so bad. These people are complaining, and Caleb and Joshua here are renting their clothes. That's just the way people done back in those days when they were absolutely amazed to the point of being disgraced, upset at what was going on around them. If they had just actually ripped their clothes, it was just more than they could bear. So that's what they're doing. All right. Now, 7 and 8. No, 7 through 9. And they spake unto all the company of the children of Israel, saying, The land which we passed through to search it is an exceeding good land. If the Lord delight in us, then he will bring us into this land and give us a land which floweth with milk and honey. Only rebel not ye against the Lord, neither fear ye the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Their defense is departed from them, and the Lord is with us, fear them not. So here you got Caleb and Joshua, full of faith, willing to obey God, and they're telling these people, these people in this land, they're like bread for us. That's like saying they're a piece of cake. They're easy to devour. And God's already given us the go-ahead and the approval that we can take them. It's not that them physically can do it on their own. It's God has told them that they can do it through him. And these two guys believe that, and they're telling it to them. All right, now I'm going to read 10. But all the congregation, oh man, look at the response of the congregation. The state of mind that they're in, because 10 people come back and gave a report that the land was full of giants. They couldn't take it. But you got 2 men there full of faith, willing to go. You know, and I'm sure, you know, that's a reminder that God has been with us this far. Is what, you know, that's the picture they're portraying there. They've rent their clothes and they're saying, we can do it. We can go into this land. But these people, look at the condition of their mind. They want to stone them right here on the spot. But all the congregation bade them with stones. Now we know what God's told Caleb and Joshua, and what they're repeating there, that they can go in this land. It is the truth. And therein, this congregation, what is it they don't like to hear? What is it that they don't want to hear? They don't want to hear the truth. It's because they ain't got the faith that Caleb and Joshua's got. And when that truth hits them, that they can do it, if they just listen to God and go on, what happens? They get angry. And they want to stone Caleb and Joshua for telling them the truth that it is. They want to kill them men right there. But the congregation bade stone them with stones, and the glory of the Lord appeared in the tabernacle of the congregation before all the children of Israel. Now this got the Lord's attention fast here. This state of mind that this congregation is wanting to stone and kill the two men that told the truth the way it should be, who don't doubt the Lord's going to deliver the promised land into their hands. The Lord appears suddenly. He shows up fast here. I made some notes here on this verse too. Life of service in Egypt's ruined these people. I didn't even repeat that part, but that's what it is. If you ask me, they're cowards too, on top of being the fact of not having any faith. They're cowards on top of that. But now I'm going to read 11 and 12. And the Lord said unto Moses, how long will this people provoke me? They've been at this pretty good now, and this is what? A little over 2 years into the process of leaving Egypt, and God's already reminding them that y'all continue to provoke me. And how long will it be ere they believe me for all the signs which I have showed among them? All the miracles that God has done so far, and he's repeating it here. How long is it going to take them to come around to see, to believe, to have faith by what God has showed them here? All right, we're about to find out God's ready to start over. And this is not a unique concept to God. Remember back in Genesis, the world got so everybody's thoughts were continually evil. What happened then? The flood. So this ain't a new idea. And what about Abraham? Even when Abraham, the place he left from wasn't that great, wasn't that much good stuff going on, God pulls him out of there, makes him leave and go back. So this is not a unique method to God. Don't be surprised if he's willing to start over. And this is the way he's thinking about this right here. I'm going to read 13 through 19. Oh yeah, I forgot 12. After which we just where God has appeared there at the tabernacle. He says they've continued to provoke me, and God says in verse 12, I will smite them with the pestilence and disinherit them, and will make of thee a greater nation and mightier than they. That was the verse I supposed to not start. Don't be surprised if God's starting over, because he's telling here he's ready to start over because of the way they continue to provoke him, and willing to stone and kill two men whose faith was strong amongst that whole congregation. All right, 13 through 19. And Moses said unto the Lord, all right, this is a characteristic of Moses. We read in the previous chapter he was meek and humble, but man, he's willing to go up to bat for these children of Israel that come out of Egypt, because he's about to do it here. He's almost like in a way arguing with the Lord, or trying to point out facts that if you wipe these people out, God, the Egyptians are going to say you broke your word. Let me read it, and it explains itself much better. And Moses said unto the Lord, then the Egyptians shall hear it. Now, that's as if God were to destroy the congregation, because anger's kindled right now. And if you do that, Lord, Moses is trying to remind Lord that these things might come to pass. The Egyptians shall hear it, for thou broughtest up this people in the might from among them. So Moses is reminding them that it's God, you brought your children up out of Egypt, and now the people in Egypt's going to hear this if you wipe them all out, that you brought them up. And they will tell it to the inhabitants of this land, for they have heard that the Lord art among this people, that thou, Lord, art seen face to face, and that thy cloud standeth over them, and that goest before them by daytime in a pillar of a cloud and a pillar of fire by night. So, I think this word would have probably spread around in this part of the world, traveling. It's not that big a country. So Moses is pointing, the word's got around that you're with these people. Obviously, that cloud and that pillar of fire is visible, and people's going to see it and going to talk about it. Now, if thou shalt kill all this people as one man, then the nations which have heard the fame of thee will speak, saying, because the Lord was not able to bring this people into the land which he sware unto them, therefore he hath slain them in the wilderness. That sounds just like false propaganda right there for what it would be. They would never share the truth that the people he destroyed them because they had no faith and they didn't listen to what he said. And they kept wanting to go back to Egypt. Nobody would hear that part. But this is what Moses is telling him, what the people around there would think. And now I beseech thee, let the power of my Lord be great according as thou hast spoken, saying, the Lord is longsuffering and of great mercy, forgiving iniquity and transgression, and by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children until the third and fourth generation. That's not saying God's going to put iniquity on the fourth generation. It's what it's saying there is the actions of a father and of a people can last that many generations if they're not doing right, and I think everybody can see that. Even today, the actions of people's forefathers, a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times can affect one generation to the next. In the way they think, in the way they believe, in the practices they do, it can happen. All right. And 19, pardon I beseech thee the iniquity of this people according unto the greatness of thy mercy, and as thou hast forgiven this people from Egypt even unto now. So Moses is asking God to not do this. Don't destroy the congregation because it's going to look bad, trying to do that. And so, let's see if I got something else to add to that. No. But anyway, we're going to see that God is long-suffering. He is a merciful God because he ain't going to wipe them all out right here in the next few minutes, and we're reading here. So God continues to be long-suffering and merciful. And not even to mention the fact that he's been feeding this people on this journey, and he's going to continue to feed these people all the way up to they get to the promised land up there. Don't forget that. That is God with these people. His anger gets kindled, but you got to remember, he is providing them life through this entire journey. He is looking after them through this whole journey too. It's no wonder his anger gets kindled against these people the way they act sometimes. But yet he still forgives the most part of the congregation at this point. He don't wipe them all out. He's not going to start over right here with Moses. So let's go on. I'll read 20 through 23. And the Lord said, I have pardoned according to thy word. So Moses is talking, praying, however you want to put this here. His communication with God results in a pardon for these people as they wanted to stone Caleb and Joshua. But as truly as I live, all the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord. The earth is not going to forget that the Lord is God, creator of all. He's making sure that they know that. Because all those men which have seen my glory and my miracles, which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have tempted me now these 10 times, and have not hearkened to my voice. 10 times already. We ain't even got into this big part of the journey yet. 10 times they've already provoked the Lord. We know that the Dead Sea, they were filled with doubt. I mean, not the Dead Sea. The Red Sea, they were lack of faith. I think there's a time before that about making bricks. They were talking about, go back, be better if we was making bricks than this. Water, they've complained about water. They've complained about food. And here, the quail, we just read about that a couple of weeks ago. They were murmuring and complaining about not having the meat, wanted to go back to Egypt where they had meat and cucumbers and melons. The golden calf, that's another big one. So, and then, of course, right here, this spy report, number 10. This was 10 times that they've done this already. And so God reminds right here that this is the way it is. Not hearken to his voice. Surely they shall not see the land. Ooh. All right. This is where they get the bad news. Surely they shall not see the land which I swear unto their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, that's the fathers, neither shall any of them that provoked me see it. So God is telling them right now, I've pardoned you, but you're not going to see that land of milk and honey. And then these verses we just read a while ago that, there's, oh, the Lord brought us out of Egypt so we can die of starvation in the wilderness, and our children are going to die too. Just piling it on there, trying to make it look like the Lord's done them wrong. But right here he's going to say, you ain't going to see it. This generation of 20 years and above, you ain't going to see the land of milk and honey, but your kids are. That's what he's going to tell them right here in a minute. All right. Let me flip over here. All right, I'm going to read 24. But my servant Caleb, because he had another spirit, now his spirit wasn't like those 10 doubters that come back with that bad spy report, remember? He's ready to go into the land. Hath followed me fully, him will I bring into the land whereinto he went, and his seed shall possess it. The children, it's going to be Caleb, Joshua, and the children go into this land of milk and honey, and it's because of the faith from Caleb and Joshua. They didn't doubt. They showed it. They stood up, and the congregation was really ready to kill them over their faith and standing up. All right. Caleb, yeah. Full of faith. He's willing to go and willing to obey the Lord. That's the big things about Caleb to remember. 26 through 35. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, how long shall I bear with this evil congregation? God's even got to the point he's calling this congregation evil at this point in time. And they acting evil. Willing to stone a man over a report of wanting to follow God's orders and go into the land. Which murmur against me. This murmuring, we keep using this word murmuring. It's complaining. They keep complaining about the Lord. They keep complaining about his instructions. I have heard the murmurings of the complaints of the children of Israel, which they murmur against me. Say unto them, as truly as I live, saith the Lord, as ye have spoken in my ears, so will I do to you. Your carcasses shall fall in this wilderness, and all that were numbered of you according to your whole number from 20 years old and upward, which have murmured against me. Like I told you a while ago, all them 20 and above carcasses, that just means they're going to die in this camping trip before they get to the land of milk and honey. They ain't going to see it. And it's because they were murmuring and complaining, not having the faith to do what God told them to do. Doubtless ye shall not come into the land concerning which I swear to make you dwell therein, save Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, the son of Nun. But your little ones, here we go, the children of this generation, these that fall in the wilderness, their children, their little ones, which ye said should be a prey. Remember, that's what they said. They wanted to bring us and our kids. You brought us out here in the wilderness to kill us all, God. But God's going to tell them right here, them will I bring in, these children, and they shall know the land which ye have despised. But as for you, your carcasses, they shall fall in this wilderness, and your children shall wander in the wilderness 40 years, and bear your whoredoms until your carcasses be wasted in the wilderness. This whoredoms, this is like the first time I believe this word is used in unbelievers, people lacking faith in God and his instruction. And it's a perfect word because it's infidelity. They are not being faithful to God. When this is said right here, he's pointing this out. You evil congregation, you are not faithful to me. You go after your false gods and your own beliefs and want to go back to Egypt. You don't trust in my word or my instructions. You want to go back to that Egypt. You want to revisit that in your minds all the time and think about how it was. That's what they're doing constantly, and God is pointing this out to them. After the number of the days, And here's how God comes up with the number of years they're going to be in this wilderness after their disobedience and lack of faith. For each day they were out in that spying mission is going to equal a year of wandering in the wilderness. It's going to take for them to get there. After the number of days in which you search the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall you bear your iniquities. Even for, okay, and remember, this extended camping trip, God is telling them, you're going to bear your iniquities. That is the bad things they've done. This is going to be on their shoulders. This burden is going to be on their back. They're going to bear these iniquities for their faith and unbelief. Even 40 years, and ye shall know my breach of promise. I, the Lord, have said, I will surely do it unto all this evil congregation that are gathered together against me. And that's it. They were gathered together against him because the two men that stood up and said, we can do it. This is a piece of cake. They were on God's side. And these people were willing to kill those two men. It is an evil congregation. And they're standing against the Lord by saying that. And he's pointing it out here. That are gathered together against me in this wilderness, they shall be consumed, and there they shall die. So, there's the verdict. Moses, all the congregation is going to hear this through Moses. This is what God is telling them. And now think about that. You're going to hear this direct from God and from Moses. It's going to have to affect them. You know, you'd think they'd want to straighten up after hearing this. But I tell you, like we started out talking about this chapter, it's easy to get them out of Egypt, but it's hard to get Egypt out of these people. All right. Now I'm going to read 36 through 38. And for some of this congregation, it's just about to get worse right here. And the men which Moses sent to search the land, all right, remember there's 12 of them. You got 10 of them that give a bad report, two give good report, who returned and made all the congregation to murmur against him by bringing up a slander upon the land. See, this little report from 10 men has swayed this whole congregation. This whole evil congregation now has swayed their thoughts and their mind to the point where they're murmuring and complaining about God. And now he's going to put forth a punishment on these. Even those men that did bring up the evil report upon the land died by the plague before the Lord. That ain't years from that point in time when this is now. We're talking real time. This is happening. But Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, which were the men that went to search the land, live still. All right. They died immediately, the ones that brought the evil report. All right, I better stop. I didn't get as far as I wanted to today. But anyway, we will pick up here next week. And I'll dismiss us.